Hi, everyone, and welcome back to As If We Know podcast. Today we are exploring the blueprint for ritual. I'm Alvio.
And I'm Kath, and these are some of the questions we want to explore. What were we taught about structure, discipline, and daily life? When did routine become about productivity rather than presence? And what moments are we rushing through that could become more meaningful?
So, today we wanted to talk about rituals. Maybe we can start by explaining a bit what we mean by that. Rituals are not just habits, rituals are really something that you choose intentionally and repeat over time to create, and I insist with the term create, a sense of structure, meaning, and control over your life and over time.
When I think about rituals, it plays out in a couple of different ways. You have rituals that can work on a personal level, maybe that's my ritual of lighting a candle and taking a bath or doing a meditation or writing or whatever it might be. We also have cultural rituals, and sometimes people refer to these as rites of passage. I think that word rite and ritual probably exist in the same universe. And on that cultural level, those rituals looked like the actions or behaviors, as we said, that really mark the passing of a life. So things like, you buy a house, you get engaged, you get married, you retire, all of those kinds of rituals. They also talk a lot about sort of coming of age rituals. So, things that you explore when you're younger or things that you go through, these really pivotal actions or events or behaviors that signify a moment in your life.
Yeah.
And those rituals, and why we think it's so relevant for us to discuss on the podcast right now, is because they essentially help to create that map of what a good life looked like.
Yeah.
The blueprint, right? And now that a lot of those rituals don't exist for many of us, a lot of us are not going to go through that very linear, predefined path. And a lot of us are not engaging in other spaces that previously would have created those rituals, like religion, for example, where we would ritually gather with our families, our loved ones, our community every Sunday. We would take that time to rest, to self-reflect, to engage with some sort of spiritual lore or whatever it might be. We don't have so many of these things that marked the passing of a life. And I think, part of our big question that we're exploring through this episode, but through so many of our episodes, is why is it that so many of us have this feeling of it being a little bit disorientated, being a little bit untethered, unmoored, feeling like life is passing by in a flash.
Yeah.
And I think actually these rituals have a lot to do with it, or the loss of these rituals.
Yeah, exactly. With what you said, it's as if rituals are really giving you a structure and helping you to punctuate, in a way, time throughout your life. And the interesting thing is, as we do with this podcast, is exploring the blueprints. And with the previous blueprint that we've explored, we were kind of showing in a way that they were kind of outdating for the new system that were in place today. With rituals, it's kind of different. We actually can see that we have lost them and that it could be actually a benefit to bring it back into our life, because without those rituals, that's how we ended up with that hustle culture, where, as you said, time goes so fast that we don't even take time to be fully present for ourselves, for our people, so the people that we love. It can be our family, it can be our friend, it can be our community, or be present just for the thing that we love to do. Also, that hustle culture that make us move to activities that feels completely like unnatural and rigid. For instance, when we see on social media this guy waking up at 5, brushing his teeth at 5:10, having his breakfast at 5:15,
Supplements,
yeah,
cold
exactly.
plunge. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's again part of that hustle culture. And then we are like wondering, oh, well, maybe that's true. That's a way for us to structure our life. But that's not really the case. It's not really like a ritual as we see it, something that, is more of a system than a to-do list.
Yeah, we've allowed routine to play the role in our life that ritual previously played. But routine, as you say, is about discipline and structure and performance and optimization.
Yeah.
And ritual is something much softer, much ideally more nourishing. And it exists for a different purpose. It's not about progressing us, it's not about it's really about intentionally recognizing, acknowledging, essentially pausing that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about performance. It's not about being productive. It's not about the result. It's more about, okay, I decide to be here. I decide to be present.
I liked what you were getting at earlier when you said that we've lost these rituals and we need to bring them back. And I think crucially, we need to bring them back, but we need to re-engineer them or reimagine them to better fit the lives that we are living today. Because it's true that a lot of those rites of passage or even those kinds of rituals like religion, for a lot of people, that might not really feel like the best solution for what we have right now. So again, we're at this moment in time where our lives do look very different. And again, we have this cool, almost creative opportunity to redefine those for ourselves and to figure out, where can I benefit from taking that intentional time? How can I insert that ritual? Where's the space in my life where it would make sense to insert that ritual, and what purpose does it need to fulfill? A big reason why those rituals were so helpful is because they essentially symbolized, like these markers of a life well lived. And they almost functioned a little bit as indicators of success and of progress. And as you said, the passing of time, but also like your progression as a human. And I've read some kind of cultural analysis out there where people are saying that something that is defining our psychology or identity as Gen Zs and millennials is this feeling that we are essentially grown-up kids, that a lot of us don't actually feel like adults. I certainly feel like that. I'm waiting for the day when I feel like a grown-ass woman.
I always say that when I'm going to be a grown-up, I'm going to buy it, but I am already.
Yeah, but a lot of us just feel like big kids. And I think this is a big part of that, which is that we never experienced a lot of those, those markers between our different chapters of our life, which
big milestones.
Yeah, which almost progress you into that next phase. We've dissolved those. And I think with that has come a lot of freedom and a lot of opportunity to explore and do things on our own terms, which is very beautiful. But at the same time, I think we can recognize what we've lost in that process as well.
Bringing it back will for sure help us recenter and bring back that structure that we need and that we've lost in a way. As you said, like about time or about the milestone that you can have for your life and even for yourself. But the thing is, it's also beautiful to see that life is not just the beginning and the end, it's the whole journey. And it's not linear. And it's maybe with the help of ritual that we can put that dimension and actually bring a pause into our, crazy schedule or rush, or, just really take time to be present, to to just be there, actually.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting to think about, and what I would love to talk about with you, with my friends, with anyone who's listening to this, if rituals are the things that symbolize that pause and also symbolize either the beginning or the end of something, where and how can we start inventing new rituals now that better fit what we need? So again, another big problem that we're seeing in culture right now is that we don't acknowledge the ending of things, and we don't almost allow things to end. And that's happening kind of on a cultural level, you know. So, I mean, just very like mainstream example, I guess. But the reason why we have so many like sequels and just film franchises that never end, people are saying that, you know, the fact that we have like Avengers 25 and, you know, it just keeps on going, it doesn't allow space for anything new to be created. It doesn't allow space for innovation. And so, yeah, like as a culture, we need to allow things to end, and we need to signify and recognize and kind of make that ending official. So if you think again, if you go back even to pagan culture and stuff, they would have things like the equinox celebration or the solstice celebration that really they would create an intentional festivity or ritual moment to really recognize like, hey, this season is ending and something new is about to begin. And as you say, that helps us progress through these moments of time, which again also gives us closure. It signals that something's ending. And then that kind of clears the slate, gives us fresh energy, and allows us to leave that chapter in the past and start something new. So again, I think that's something that we really need right now, is that space for creativity and for innovation. And we cannot do that if we are all if we haven't allowed ourselves to say goodbye to things that no longer serve us, or we're still holding tightly onto old things.
So if I understand, you really see that as a cycle. And then after, but do you repeat that cycle? Because for me, this is what ritual is about. It's like about repeating in a way.
A repetition.
Cycle. Yeah, exactly. For instance, when I think about a ritual that I want to do is, let's say I want to organize, you know, a dinner with all my friends once a month and really be present with them and enjoy that moment that I'm going to have with them. And then leading towards that event, we build expectation. We know that it's coming.
Yeah, the anticipation.
Yeah, exactly.
You think about what you want to bring to the space. No, totally.
Exactly.
I completely agree that, and it's kind of interesting because, yeah, like I think the ritual is about the repetition, but critical part of that is that it's the repetition that's marking a chapter or a moment in time, you know? And so the ritual can almost be that moment that you take as like, okay, time to refresh, time to, you know, like, and again, if we take your friend dinner example, maybe that's the dinner where somebody is going to come and pour their heart out about their crush that's not texting them back, or their toxic ex that won't leave them alone. And you could almost use that moment to be like, right, let it all out, girl. Like, this is the space. We're here for you. And after today, you pick yourself up.
Yeah, we
new
leave
chapter.
that behind, and then new chapter. Yeah, so that's a way really like to move towards another cycle, a new cycle, stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Some of the rituals that we do still hold on to, they are really the times in our life that are the most special. So things like, you know, like the way we celebrate a birthday, that's a ritual. You know, that's something that we've all agreed on as a culture that we are going to do every year at the same time for that person that we love. That's a ritual celebration. Christmas is one of the most, you know, festive, beautiful, or whatever equivalent maybe you might have in your culture. It's that moment of once a year, the family is going to come together. And every year, what makes it special is that we all are going to do the same things that we do every year.
Yeah.
Auntie is going to make her famous trifle or whatever. The kids are going to decorate gingerbread houses or whatever, you know.
And it's just coming together
with those repeated actions. That's that intentional time where the rest of life just takes a pause. And those are the things that we remember, you know. I think
True.
when we look back at the end of our lives, we're not going to remember that rush of what was happening in those busy weeks in between. We're going to remember the moments where we really took that time to slow down and to intentionally be together or do something, create that action, create that little moment.
Yeah.
That's what's going to stay with us.
Totally agree with you. And on a personal note, for instance, I could just tell you how I see rituals, and I have really like two types of rituals. It's really, as you said earlier, personal rituals. So everything that I would do and repeat to ground myself could be movement, could be meditation, could be just staying in silence, or my beauty routine in the morning, you know, just that. I
Tell us
would
about your
say,
beauty routine.
sorry, what?
Tell us about your beauty routine.
Well, for instance, this morning I almost gave up on my hair ritual because I didn't think it was coming like the way I wanted to. But I made it. I pushed through, you know.
But it's actually so
And
true. Beauty ritual is something that's something that we've held on to.
yeah,
And for so many people, it is such an important moment in the day. And it's not about your vanity or whatever. It's about that taking time to care for
yeah,
yourself.
for
Yeah.
yourself. And that's so funny because when I do that, so I put my cream, I do my hair, my phone is off, and no music,
Unreachable.
no nothing, and it's like a meditation for myself. But yeah, so it's part of it, part of my ritual, and I love to do that. I love everything related to beauty, so that's something also that I enjoy to do, and then I repeat like day after day. So it's more like also like a routine. And so I have like this personal ritual, I would say, and then this collective ritual. So it would be everything that connects myself with either my family, my friends, mostly my family. And to take the example, you know, I come from an Italian family, so big family dinner were part of our culture, and the gathering was something that we would do quite often, that we would look forward to it. So those are really like two types of ritual. One, the personal ritual could be seen as a, you know, performance based ritual because it's all about being healthy, looking good. But at the core, it's really about self connection. So, really connecting to myself. And then the other one, the collective ritual, are really about, at the core, connecting to others. And so by really analyzing that and, you know, talking to myself, as I do quite often, I've come to the realization that actually like both of these ritual were an expression of love. In a way, the first one was self-love, and then the other one was an expression of love for others, you know, for my friends, for my family. So it really is something that we can get into deeper and bring, I don't know, other meaning to it. I feel that there is like really another dimension to what a ritual can be. It can bring you, you know?
True. Yeah. Sometimes we just do these things on autopilot, you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, am I really going to go to the family dinner
Yeah.
again? Am I like, oh God, I can't believe I have to do my 5-step routine. But
True.
if we can find a way to relate to it better, you're right that there's so much more that you could get out of it.
Yeah, when you really get into the root of what the purpose of that ritual is, and here the purpose is really showing love, then after you do it with such another mentality
Yeah.
and you approach it in such a different way that it doesn't become something that you do in automatic mode. It's something that you do really intentionally because you know the benefit is going to be for for yourself and for others, you know?
I found this one writer who talks about rituals as beautiful behaviors, and that really stayed with me because I think it's so true that that's what separates a ritual from a routine is where you are intentionally taking the time to make something beautiful, do it gracefully, do it slowly, do it with intention. You don't have to. You could very easily rush through that thing. But the fact that you take the time to make it beautiful, to do it with grace, is what makes it so much more rewarding, so much more gratifying, fulfilling.
That, and also it will maybe show you that you already have some rituals in place that you don't even know about, you know?
Yeah. You could just take a little bit more time and do it with a little bit more
Yeah,
intention.
acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Just a walk could be a ritual, taking time for a walk that you repeat. Very something simple.
Yeah. We like to talk about how are people already in little pockets kind of reinventing and reimagining these blueprints for themselves. Again, knowing that for a lot of us, those big milestones are maybe falling away. Not so many people are getting married anymore. Not so many people are having kids anymore. Just because you might not have that big milestone of a big wedding or a big, I don't know, baby shower, we should invent new celebration moments,
true.
you know? So, like, why not have a big dinner or lunch or brunch to celebrate your promotion or the launch of your new project, or congrats on your breakup, or let's have a house moving party for you. One of our friends was very sweet. He invited us all for brunch and asked us for some help with some of his tasks around the house. He said he self-confesses that he's not the most handy person.
So cute.
And so he invited some of us around to help him hang his curtains, you know? And like, I think those are some very sort of endearing and sweet ways that a lot of people in our circles are kind of starting to recreate these rituals on their own terms.
So new big milestones in a way.
Yeah. And I even had this thought, and this is a free business idea for anyone out there, but if we think about how we mark these rituals and these celebrations, in the traditional sense, you might get like a big cake. But if you go to any bakery out there, the options of what kind of cake you can get are going to be like happy birthday or congrats on your wedding or congrats on your baby. So what if you're a bakery and you kind of like, why not give people the option to completely customize the message, or even offer things like congrats on your breakup cake, or congrats on leaving your
I feel.
Congrats on your new job, congrats on your new puppy.
New ways of celebrating life in a way.
Congrats on your new identity, congrats on your rebrand. Like there's so many cool things that we could be signifying and marking.
So really, ritual is a tool that we can really use to get back at living with intention, with celebration, with beauty.
Yes, it's a way to make life more gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who doesn't want that?
True.
My own experience of big rituals, and I still have to laugh at myself to this day, because so me and my partner, our gorgeous director and producer, we really did not like the idea of having a wedding. We thought like it's just not for us. We did not want a church. We did not want a ceremony. We did not want even the legal contract. There was so much about it that just like was so off-putting to us. We didn't like the formality of it all. And so for years we said, we're not doing that. That's a horrible idea. And then I had the idea that I didn't want that, but what I did want was I wanted a big party with all of our best friends and family in one place at one time. And
Who doesn't love a big party?
Yeah. And I thought, if we don't have a wedding, we're just never going to have that moment, because what other reason would all of our friends and family have to fly across the world and be in the same place at the same time? And so that's how we kind of came around to this idea of what we called our love party.
Aww.
And I'm so sad I didn't meet you before then, because you should have been there. It was so cool.
We'll have to redo a remake. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I want to attend the love party.
10-year anniversary love party edition loading. Yeah. But so yeah, we basically designed this love party concept, but we made it completely our own. So it was very confusing for a lot of people. They were like, so am I flying across the world for a wedding? Is it not a wedding? What's a love party? What do we wear? And it was such a cool experience that we could kind of take that blueprint of like what the wedding could have been, but then completely re-engineer it and remix it to what we wanted. So we left everything that we didn't want, and we took the parts that made sense to us. Like we thought, okay, we want to have all of our friends and family together. We want everyone to look sexy as hell. So everybody, turn out a look for us. We want to have great food. We want to have dancing. But then we wanted a lot of other things too. We wanted it to be in nature. We wanted it to happen over the course of a weekend so that everybody had the time to like get to know each other. We wanted our Brussels friend techno DJ to play. So
Wow.
and that was an experience that really taught me that you can reinvent it and make it something completely your own. And actually then that is something that is, stays with you, and it's completely your DNA. So yeah, that's really my encouragement to anyone is, celebrate the fuck out of your life. Like,
and your
whatever it might be.
uniqueness. You don't have to do it as your neighbor did it or as the one on social media did it. You just do it your own way.
Yes.
So it talks to you and...
Yeah, and you don't have to wait for whatever society says is the right moment, True. If you feel like organizing your promotion party or your unwedding party or I'm celebrating the fact that I'm single for 40 years or whatever, like let's just like invent and let's just celebrate life while we're here and while we can.
Yeah. Let's just come up with all kind of rituals so we are sure that our life is punctuated, that we know that time is passing by and we have control over it.
Yeah. And I mean, if anyone out there is listening and if you've heard of a really cool or unique celebration where somebody really made a ritual or a milestone completely their own, let us know, because I think it's really cool if we can share some inspiration around that for people to do it their way.
Yeah, I like that we bring that really like into a celebration because that's what we miss sometimes. We don't celebrate even the small wins when we do something. That's, we are trying to build that momentum, but it's very difficult. So it's nice also that along the way you do it and you do it your own way. And that's a way to push us through in a way.
Totally. And we know from our own experience, it's so easy to just keep focusing on what's next. How can we do better? How can, rather than actually take that time to acknowledge what we have done and what we have achieved. So we spoke a lot about celebration. We spoke about beauty rituals. We spoke about family rituals. I think that's also something interesting to explore, is that you can create different rituals that perform different functions in your life. So sometimes it is about celebration. Sometimes it can also be, as you said, about slowing down, connecting to yourself, grounding, and maybe that's the more individual ritual that you described. Sometimes it can be to mark the end of a chapter, to put something to rest. And so I guess that's the message overall, is where in our lives could we use that tool of marking this moment with significance, and how can we invent that for ourselves?
It's really like a compass to point out to the areas of life where we need more attention, maybe, or more grounding in general. Yeah, true. Because a ritual, almost by taking that time to slow down and to celebrate that thing or acknowledge that thing, you actually give that thing more significance, more meaning, and more gravitas. Yeah.
So it's super powerful. I've spoken a bit about some of our friends inventing their own rituals. I've also been exploring a little bit some new rituals that are emerging out there in culture, and some of them are quite funny. Some of them are, I don't know if you've heard of this thing called scream therapy.
I've heard, yes.
You've heard of it?
Yes.
It's like these groups of people that are just all agreeing on a time and place, usually a park or a public space, and then they all show up and then they all just scream together. And that is a ritual. That's like a collective outlet ritual to process some sort of intense emotion. And yeah, it's kind of funny and it's kind of bizarre.
The screaming community.
The screaming community, yeah. But it's like, that to me, that's such an interesting example of people inventing a new
Yeah.
ritual that serves a very, very specific purpose of emotional release and emotional
True.
outlets.
Resetting your nervous system in a way that you don't expect.
Yeah, you've also seen this explosion of the retreat industry. Have
Yeah.
you been on a retreat before?
No, never actually.
Do you want to?
Yes.
Okay, should we go?
Yes, please. But
Yeah.
I don't know which one because I feel there are so many different ones.
That's what I was gonna
There is
say.
this retreat where you go completely in the dark for a few days to a week, I think.
Yeah, you have silent retreats. But I think what I was going to say is that's also a space where you see people quite intentionally creating these, well, they call it retreats, but it is a ritual in a kind of way because in that space, it's all designed around this sort of intentionally beautiful behavior.
Yeah.
But you have people now organizing retreats for a lot of different things. I've seen people organizing divorce retreats for people going through a divorce. I've seen people organizing grief retreats because that's something that, is very hard to process on your own and it can be very helpful to have other people around you. Sometimes it's just, people that want to dance. Sometimes it's about healing. There's so many different, sometimes it's about play and craft and creativity. So I think it's so beautiful that people are organizing these things based on these different needs.
They are being very creative in a way.
Yeah.
Because it shows also we don't have to go through it alone. If we love to do that, I'm sure I'm going to find my tribe and do it with them. It's better to do it with someone than do it by yourself.
That's those community retreat
exactly.
rituals you spoke about.
So you have all kind of community that you don't even expect,
Yeah.
with people really liking even the weird stuff that you like, maybe. Let's not get into that.
To wrap up, we have defined rituals. We've explored why we think they are critical in rewriting some of these new blueprints.
Yeah.
We've explored how it can mean many different things to different people. What else do we need to remember about rituals?
So we can say that ritual is something that we need to engineer intentionally back into our life in order to slow down, not to rush through life, in order to connect deeply with yourself and with others.
I wrote that it creates anchors in a fast-changing world, punctuates life, and helps us find meaning in repetition rather than escaping it.
Yeah, that's, I think, all is said there.
Cool. Okay, so what does the fortune cookie forecast tell us today?
A little ritual with the fortune
true.
cookie.
Let's go.
Let's do it. What does the universe has to say today? An unexpected visitor will bring you good news you have been waiting for.
Okay, well,
Unexpected visitor.
tune
love
in
that.
to the next episode to find out who visited us and what they said. Can't wait.
Do you have an idea? No.
No.
Oh, well. Yeah. Maybe we'll have a guest on the next
Good
episode.
news. Yeah, maybe finally someone's bringing us the answers we've been looking for. Not more questions.
Thank you everyone for listening. This is As If We Know podcast. I'm Alvio.
And I'm Kath. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, As If We Know podcast. You can find us on Instagram, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.